Hey everyone, today I have a 3D printing video for you. These models are Dralthi fighters from the game Wing Commander. Anyone remember that? These are some of the first models that I 3D printed, and I definitely learned some lessons from it and thought I would share those with you. These were printed with eSun PLA Plus filament in bright white. So this was the first model that I printed, and it's printed with a layer height of 0.12 millimeters. 0.2 millimeters is a common starting point for people when they're printing. And you can see the details are pretty good, but there is still some stuff left to be desired. I'll show you more closely with the next models. But in addition to learning about the layer height, something that I learned was about the supports. And when you're 3D printing, you can't just print like in middle of the air. Everything has to start from the base plate and be connected to it in some way. So, when I started printing this model, I printed it flat like this. The bottom was this surface. And as you can see, well, because these wings can't just print in the middle of the air, you have to build up supports. You print supports, which are, in their simplest form, they're like vertical towers, which then hold up the model that you're printing. And these supports are supposed to break away, hopefully cleanly. But, it's not always quite as clean as you would like. And that means that the bottom of your model tends to have the worst finish. And you can see, compared to the top, which usually has the best finish, the top's pretty smooth, and the bottom still has all these basically remnants from the supports, but also because, not everything is touching something, it's just not as clean. So trying to improve on things, I printed this model, and you can see it's kind of like battle worn or something, battle damaged. I think it's a cool look, but that's not intentional. So the differences with this model are I printed it with a 0.10 millimeter layer height to try to get some more fine details. And also I oriented it this way to try to minimize the bottom surface. So you can see the bottom here does look better than the first one. And, it printed like this. So the bottom here, see the engines, and you got the little squiggly there. So the cleanup had to be on just these surfaces. And it came out pretty well. The reason some of these spaces are missing is that I had the print thin walls setting turned off, which is a setting in Cura, the slicer I was using. And I'll talk about the slicer in just a second, but the effect of that setting was in the model, these areas here are actually thinner than 0.1 millimeters, so they did not print. And I think it actually gave it a pretty cool look. Let's compare for a second here. You can see in the first model, looking at the fine details, like look at the curve on the cockpit here. You can actually see the steps on the first model. On the newer one, it's very smooth. And on the bottom, see, this is supports versus no supports. But the first printout's engines are a little bit cleaner. because the supports are on this side in this model. And also you can see with the smaller layer height, we've got some fine details that were lost with the larger layer height. Pretty interesting. So the slicer that I mentioned ago that I'm using is Cura, and what a slicer is a program that turns a 3D model into instructions for your 3D printer. You need this because different printers, different filaments need different settings, so you have to actually do your own slicing generally. Cura is a good slicer to use because it's free, which means a lot of people use it, and that in turn means there's all kinds of tutorials available online, so you can definitely find help for what you need to learn. Looking at the last model, this is also printed with a 0.10 millimeter layer height. This one has the print thin walls turned on, and which means the slicer will fill in those areas where there's kind of nothing in the model. And it was also printed in this orientation. So just taking a close look, I'm pretty pleased with how this came out. Got the nice smooth cockpit, the fine details. The bottom of the model, yeah, the engines are a little rough, but you have to do something. You have to pick a bottom side, basically, unless you wanted to slice the model like in half and then print halves and then attach it back together. Looking at the underside, it's pretty clean. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's compare with the other models a little bit. And the first model really doesn't look too bad from this angle, but definitely more fine detail in the third model. In the bottom, there's really no comparison. Alright, hope you just enjoyed this quick look at some 3D printing models. Thanks for watching.